Do you find yourself saying yes to everything, even when you're already overwhelmed? We all want to be helpful, but overcommitting can lead to stress, burnout, and frustration. In today's episode, we're going to break down why we struggle to say no, how to identify these emotional triggers, and most importantly, how to set boundaries that give you back control of your time and energy. In this episode, we will break down the motivations and emotional drivers that compel us to overcommit. We'll clarify why it's important to understand the root causes, and we'll address the root causes of saying yes that cause you to overcommit, that lead to stress and burnout. All right, let's discuss our reasons for saying yes. Understanding the root of saying yes involves digging into the underlying motivations and emotional drivers that compel us to overcommit or to take on responsibilities even when we don't have the capacity. This is a key element that's discussed in Deborah Filetta's book, Reset, where she ties it into some common psychological and emotional reasons we struggle with boundaries. All right, let's talk about the common psychological or emotional reasons that we say yes. First off is a desire for approval or acceptance. The first part of this is we may have a fear of disappointment. Many people say yes because they fear disappointing others or being perceived as unreliable. This is often rooted in a desire to be liked, respected, or accepted by our peers, family, or colleagues. The second part of this desire for approval or acceptance is a need for validation. We may agree to requests because it can give us a sense of self-worth or validation. We may believe that being helpful or constantly available will make us more valuable to other people. Next is guilt and obligation. And there's a couple things under this one. The first one is feeling responsible for others. We often say yes out of a sense of duty or obligation. You may feel responsible for other people's happiness or success, and as a result, find it difficult to say no. Part B of this is a self-sacrificing mentality. Guilt can make us feel like we're not doing enough, even when we're already stretched thin. This guilt pushes us to commit more than we should, even at the cost of our own well-being. Third is the fear of conflict. And the first section of on this fear of conflict is avoiding conflict. We may say no because saying no can sometimes lead to conflict or confrontation. And many people are conflict averse, including myself. To avoid uncomfortable situations, they may find it difficult to say no, and so they say yes even when they don't want to. 4 is a fear of rejection. We might say yes to avoid being rejected or excluded. This fear of missing out on connections, opportunities, or acceptance can drive people to agree to things they would otherwise pass on. Next up is the belief that more equals better. And the first under this category is a productivity mindset. It's in a culture that we value busyness and productivity, many of us tie our self-worth to how much we can do. We say yes because we think that doing more will lead to being more successful, more accomplished, or more worthy. Continuing under this belief of more equals better is this concept of FOMO, or fear of missing out. Sometimes we say yes because we fear missing out on an opportunity, an experience, or potential gain. This can lead us to overextend ourselves even when we know it's not beneficial in the long run. Number 5 is the desire to be a hero or the hero. And the first part of this one is a fixer or rescuer complex. Some people feel a strong urge to save the day or fix every problem. This can stem from a belief that if they don't step in, things will fall apart. Over time, this can lead to burnout as they take on too much to try to be the hero in every situation. And 6 is a lack of self-awareness or fear of self reflection. And the first part of this is avoiding discomfort of boundaries. Many people say yes because they've never been taught to set boundaries or fear the discomfort of doing so. They may not even be aware of the internal pressures they're responding to. The second part of this lack of self-awareness or fear of self-reflection is the fear of letting go. For some, saying yes is about maintaining control or avoiding the discomfort that comes with letting go of obligations, even when they're unnecessary. All right, so let's discuss why it's important to understand these root causes. First off, it allows us to identify personal triggers for overcommitment. It helps us to develop strategies to overcome these tendencies. Third, it helps us make more intentional decisions about how we spend our time and energy. And fourth, it helps us to align our commitments with our true priorities and values. All right, this is my favorite segment. This is the practical application, addressing the root of saying yes. How do we address the root of saying yes? First, we start by recognizing the root. Ask yourself why you're saying yes. Are you trying to please someone, avoid guilt, or gain validation? Identifying the root can help you start addressing it. This is practically where we begin. Two is we reframe our value. Your worth is not tied to how much you do for others. Practice affirming that your value comes from who you are, not what you accomplish. Third, start saying no gently. Practice setting boundaries in smaller situations, which makes it easier to say no in more significant scenarios later. Saying no doesn't have to be harsh. It can be kind and firm. And fourth, we focus on priorities. We get clear on our personal rocks, or the most important things in our lives. When you know what matters, it is easier to decline what doesn't align with our priorities. All right, let's recap what we've learned in this episode. In this episode, we discussed the motivations and emotional drivers that compel us to overcommit. We clarified why it's important to understand these root causes, and we looked at practical ways to address the root causes of saying yes. Remember, it's easy to fall into the trap of overcommitting, thinking it's the only way to serve God and other people. But God's plan is one that includes rest, peace, and healthy boundaries. If you'd like to dive deep and check out more on this topic, I'll put a link up here in the video and also down below to another episode which talks about setting boundaries.